Coming up on Primetime News, Korean President Park Geun-hye says there will be no exceptions in the fight against corruption and said that fraud played a role in last year's tragic ferry disaster. The Korean government lays out measures to bolster exports as the country's traditional growth engine loses steam due to low global oil prices and the sluggish Chinese economy. And an official Japanese government map from the late 19th century shows that Tokyo's territorial claims over Dokdo Island are false. Stay with us for these stories and more. Welcome to Primetime News on this Wednesday, April 15th. I'm Hwang Ji-hye.
And I'm Daniel Choy. Thank you for joining us. We begin with President Park Geun-hye's comments on the high-profile bribery scandal.
Zero tolerance for corruption. That's what President Park Geun-hye said as she called for the prosecution's impartial investigation into the allegations surrounding some of her closest aides.
On the eve of the first anniversary of the Sewol ferry disaster, she also asked officials to find a way to resolve issues with the victims' families. Our Choi Yoo-sun starts us off.
Directly addressing the latest bribery scandal for the first time, President Park Geun-hye said allegations that former and current politicians accepted money from a businessman should be clarified.
저는 부정부패에 책임이 있는 사람은 누구도 용납하지 않을 것입니다. 국민도 그런 사람은 용서하지 않을 것입니다.
The issue hits close to home. The so-called bribery list left by deceased former Gyeongnam Enterprises chair Song Wan-jong contains the names of 8 current and former politicians, including Prime Minister Lee Wan-gu and the Presidential Chief of Staff Lee Byung-gi. At a meeting with officials to check up on national safety a day before the first anniversary of the Sewol ferry disaster, President Park said corruption has even cost lives. She alluded to corrupt practices from previous administrations.
이번 기회에 우리 정치에서 과거부터 현재까지 문제가 있는 부분은 정치개혁 차원에서 한번 완전히 밝힐 필요가 있다고 생각합니다.
President Park, who earlier this week said the government will actively look into salvaging the sunken ferry, urged officials to find a way to resolve the accident investigation and compensation issues. This comes as the families of the more than 300 victims demand an independent inquiry and an immediate recovery of the ship. The ruling party said the president's message on corruption was timely. The main opposition party, meanwhile, said the president should apologize to the nation and call for the resignation of the prime minister and presidential chief of staff. Choi Yoo-sun, Arirang News.
As mentioned earlier, a year has passed since the tragic Sewol ferry accident. And for many, especially the families of the victims, it's been an agonizing 12 months.
Hard to describe their pain. Connie Kim reports on how the bereaved families, volunteers, and citizens have tried to recover from that disaster.
Snow, rain, or sun. Oh Byung-hwan refuses to leave this protest camp in the heart of Seoul since August. He cannot forget the promise his son, Oh Young-seok, made before he left on that deadly ferry trip.
I had surgery on my left leg. When I was in the hospital, my son would visit me after school and he would take me out in a wheelchair. I remember Young-seok telling me he wanted to become a nurse so that he could help the injured. He's no longer here to keep his word. I miss him.
Young-seok's father is one of the hundreds of parents mourning their children and demanding that the tragedy never be forgotten or repeated. For some families, closure is especially elusive.
Still living with the pain of a year ago, the parents and volunteers have not given up hope that the 9 people who are still missing will be found.
Many families, volunteers, and supporters believe salvaging the ship and uncovering the truth behind the sinking are necessary to prevent future disasters and honor the dead. The elderly, foreigners, and students stopped by to sign their petition.
Many foreigners have been showing interest in the petition. Students especially come voluntarily to participate.
Memories of the victims fill up the central square. Photos of their happiest times, school uniforms, and messages of hope. People line up to leave flowers, burn incense sticks, and honor those lost to the sea.
세월호가 침몰해서 운명을 달리한 어떻게 보면 우리 친구들이에요. 그죠? 하늘나라에서 평안히 안식 취하라고 진심 어린 마음으로 간단하게 명령 한번 드리겠습니다.
As hundreds gather for ceremonies to commemorate the tragedy, it continues to be a painful event in the country's history. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
On the political front, tackling unemployment and Korea's chronically low birth rate topped the agenda on the third day of a four-day interpellation session in Parliament today. Our Ji Myung-gil has more.
Lawmakers from the ruling Saenuri Party questioned government officials on whether the government has a plan for tackling the rising youth unemployment rate, which is nearly 3 times higher than the overall jobless rate. They also asked about plans to address Korea's worryingly low birth rate, as it's expected to start undermining economic growth soon.
Data from Statistics Korea shows that youth unemployment was over 11% in February, the highest figure in 15 years. What can you say about that?
The government is doing all it can to create new jobs by supporting President Park Geun-hye's Creative Economy Initiative and pushing for labor market reforms.
The lawmaker went on to point out that the number of newborns in Korea dropped to 430,000 last year from 630,000 back in 2000, a loss to the economy of more than $200 billion. Meanwhile, lawmakers from the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy Party continue to demand that Prime Minister Lee Won-gu resign amid a snowballing corruption scandal involving a recently deceased businessman who claimed to have given a large sum of money to Lee a couple of years ago.
This is an unprecedented graft scandal. I would urge the Prime Minister to first step down and then comply with the prosecution's ongoing probe. What do you think about this?
I believe this scandal will have a large impact. I think the investigation will reveal this to be a very complicated case.
Lawmaker Chung Chung-lee, a member of the main opposition party's Supreme Council, said Wednesday that he will seek to impeach Prime Minister Lee if he refuses to resign. The embattled prime minister is accused of accepting some $27,000 from the recently deceased businessman Song Wan-jong while he was running for a National Assembly seat back in April 2013. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
Moving our focus up north, Pyongyang says if its demands for a 5% pay raise at the Inter-Korean Business Park is not met within the next few days, it's going to start applying a late payment fee, which could add up pretty fast. Our Kim Hyun-bin reports.
North Korea stated that it will impose late fees on salaries payable to its workers at the Inter-Korean Kaesong Industrial Complex if the South Korean government doesn't agree to its unilateral 5% wage hike by early next week. It says the fee has been set at 0.5% daily, or 15% per month, after the deadline passes. The latest ultimatum comes after Seoul said earlier this week that it will not be restrained by Pyongyang's timetable in resolving the wage hike issue. An official at Seoul's Unification Ministry said on Wednesday that North Korea unilaterally set sub-regulations regarding late wage payment fees in 2008 and levied the fees once in September 2010. The South Korean government has pointed out that while it prefers decision to be reached through dialogue, it has no realistic way of preventing Pyongyang from pushing ahead with this plan. The wage hike issue has snowballed into quite the controversy, since North Korea unilaterally decided in February to raise workers' wages by 5% to $74 a month starting in March. About 53,000 North Korean workers are employed by 124 South Korean companies at the Kaesong Industrial Complex. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Staying on the communist state, Today marks what would have been the 103rd birthday of North Korea's founding father Kim Il-sung, and Kim Jong-un commemorated the anniversary by paying his respects to his grandfather. The North Korean Central News Agency reported Wednesday that the young leader was accompanied by senior military officials when he visited the Kumsusan Palace of the Sun at midnight. It said a basket of flowers in Kim's name was placed before the statues of his grandfather and father at the Memorial Hall. Dubbed the Day of the Sun, North Korea designated April 15th as a national holiday in 1997. The anniversary comes as the young leader is believed to have consolidated his power after a 3-year mourning period for his father, Kim Jong-il.
More evidence found showing Dokdo Island is Korean territory. The 19th century Japanese government map is the first official document to reinforce the claim. Son Jung-in has more.
Researchers in Korea have discovered another piece of evidence disproving Japan's claims to Korea's Dokdo Island. A map from the Japanese Agriculture and Commerce Ministry from 1897 identifies both Dokdo and the neighboring Ulleungdo Island as Korean territory, with the islands and the Korean peninsula all in white to show they're all part of the same nation. The map also refers to Dokdo by its Russian name instead of the Japanese name Takeshima.
If Dokdo were Japanese territory, wouldn't they use the Japanese name consistently?
The latest discovery adds to a mounting body of evidence debunking Japan's claims to the Korean island. Japan not only repeated the claim in its annual diplomatic blue book, but recently approved more middle school textbooks claiming Korea is illegally occupying Dokdo. Maps dating back to 1948 from a map compilation organization under the Japanese government do not include Dokdo as Japanese territory. Another map published by the Japanese Army General Staff Office in 1936 distinctly places Dokdo and Ulleungdo in Korean territory. An 1895 Japanese map book also shows Dokdo within the Korean borderline.
Japan keeps claiming that Dokdo is its territory, but it is a clear lie. This official map from the Japanese government makes us wonder if it can continue on with such claims.
Despite the clear evidence from the Japanese government itself, the Shinzo Abe administration remains adamant that Korea's Dokdo Island belongs to Japan. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
We now move on to the latest jobs report. The number of new jobs added last month was the lowest in almost 2 years, and the unemployment rate also inched up from a year ago. Our Shin Se-min has the numbers.
The stumbling Korean economy added some 338,000 new jobs in March. The increase in new hires was the smallest since May of 2013. Statistics Korea said Wednesday the total number of employed people was more than 25 million in March, driven by hiring in the manufacturing and service sectors. The employment rate for people between the ages of 15 and 64 remained at 64.9%, unchanged from the previous month. The report also showed that the unemployment rate was at 4% in March. That's lower than the 4.6% recorded in February, but 0.1 percentage point higher than the previous year. The unemployment rate for young Koreans between the ages of 15 and 29 fell to 10.7% last month, down from the 11.1% tallied in February, the highest monthly figure since the data was first collected in 2000. It's slow going, but one expert says that the economy is showing signs of growth and employment will pick up soon. But the key here is that the growth rate on the hiring front is slowing.
The country is looking at long-term growth, so large companies are therefore reluctant to hire more new employees. That has a direct impact on the large number of educated young job seekers that are eyeing positions in large companies.
Experts say that structural measures to boost the economy will be more influential than new hiring policies, as such measures will help alleviate unemployment in the long run. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Now, the Chinese economy grew at its slowest pace in 6 years in the first quarter this year. The country's National Bureau of Statistics says the GDP expanded by 7% on year between January and March. The Bureau attributed the slowdown to a decline in housing sales as well as a drop in global demand for Chinese products. Despite the slowing growth, Beijing remained optimistic, saying it will focus on maintaining a stable economy by strengthening the job market and improving efficiency. And that slowing Chinese economy and low global oil prices are putting a dent in Korean exports, the pillars of the economy. To stem the tide, the government has announced a new set of measures. Our Kim Min-ji has the details.
The government has unveiled a set of measures to help Korean companies boost exports in the face of slowing outbound shipments. Exports came to $133.6 billion in the first 3 months of the year, falling nearly 3% from the same period a year ago. The fall comes on the back of a sharp decline in global oil prices, which has led to a cut in the prices for petroleum and petrochemical products, the nation's main exports. The measures are aimed at shoring up small and mid-sized companies by tackling non-tariff barriers to trade in other markets, as well as further tapping into China's consumer goods markets and boosting electronic transactions.
There are companies that establish and manage online malls. We will help them expand into China by pairing them with small and medium-sized companies.
The government also plans to strengthen cooperation with e-commerce companies such as Alibaba, the largest such firm in China, by facilitating the registration of roughly 900 local products and approximately 100 local firms. The government is also seeking to help local firms promote their products in other promising regions, such as the U.S. and the Middle East, and provide customized support to firms targeting emerging markets. It will also set aside $40 billion worth of trade insurance for small and medium-sized companies. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
The 7th World Water Forum, currently underway in Korea's southern city of Daegu and Gyeongju, aims to find better ways to tackle water shortage problems.
But for businesses in the water industry, it also offers lucrative opportunities in the global water market. With more on this report, here's our Kwon So-ah.
Trying to find solutions on how to provide the entire world with the water it needs is the main reason participants have gathered at the World Water Forum. But for some, it's more about how to make money out of water.
It's being called the blue gold industry, a market on the rise as water shortages are becoming a global issue. And Korea is furthering its position in the industry by expanding its water management technology and sharing its know-how with the world.
By 2025, the global water market is expected to almost double from what it was worth in 2010. Korea's water market is also on a steady growth path. It's forecast to be worth $10.6 billion in 3 years. One big contributor to the local industry is the state-run Korea Water Resources Corporation, which has been promoting its methods of preserving and distributing safe and clean water.
We are introducing a new paradigm called the Smart Water Management Initiative that aims to utilize ICT in each of our management stages, from the raw water source to our faucets.
K-Water has also proven its competitiveness abroad, with projects in more than 20 countries. At the World Water Forum, it signed a contract with France-based water giant Suez Environment. And it's not the only Korean player in global water treatment.
Doosan is the biggest manufacturer of desalination plants in the world. And what desalination plants do is they create fresh water from ocean water. So this helps alleviate regions that don't have enough water, such as Saudi Arabia, the Middle East.
The Middle East is one of the regions that's seeking more partnerships with Korea in the fight against water shortages.
We have a very good relation with Korea, and the president visited us 2 times in the country, and we have a lot in common in terms of different applications. satellite and nuclear. So we think also the cloud seeding could be also another subject that we could benefit with Korea and share the experience.
Water shortage issues are not just a problem for developing countries anymore. Experts say the blue gold industry in the 21st century could become larger than the black gold or oil industry in the 20th century. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Now it's time to take a look at the top headlines from around the world with our Paul Yi.
Yes, and our focus today, Obama pushes to clear Cuba as sponsor of terrorism protests. Erupt against police violence in New York, and the world loses legendary soul singer Percy Sledge.
Right. Let's first start off with the latest developments in U.S.-Cuba relations. The White House says it plans to take the island nation off the list of state sponsors of terrorism. So, Paul, what's the reaction from Havana?
Well, Cuban government officials have hailed the decision, saying the country should never have been included on the blacklist. It's also welcome news for many Cubans who have been waiting for this breakthrough for decades. On Tuesday, President Barack Obama informed Congress of his plans to remove Cuba from the U.S. terror list after more than 30 years. U.S. lawmakers now have 45 days to block the measure before it goes into effect. Republican Senator Marco Rubio, who recently announced his bid for the presidency, condemned the decision.
Cuba is a state sponsor of terrorism. They harbor fugitives of American justice, including someone who killed a police officer in New Jersey over 30 years ago. It's also the country that's helping North Korea evade weapons sanctions by the United Nations. They should have remained on the list of state sponsors of terrorism, and I think sends a chilling message to our enemies abroad that this White House is no longer serious about calling terrorism by its proper name.
Obama's surprise announcement comes just days after he held a historic meeting with Cuban leader Raul Castro on the sidelines of a summit in Panama. Foreign policy experts say the latest move to restore diplomatic ties marks a major step towards reopening embassies in Havana and Washington after more than 5 decades of hostilities. And staying in the U.S., hundreds of New Yorkers have taken to the streets to protest a string of high-profile police violence cases in recent months. A large rally marched through Manhattan and then blocked traffic on the Brooklyn Bridge on Tuesday. Activists made up of mostly black, white, and Latino youth held signs saying "Stop Police Murder" as they called for justice for African-American men who were shot dead by white police officers.
I just want to stop the police brutality against my Latinos and my black people, because 99% of the time the cops are in Bushwick, East New York, Harlem, everywhere committing violence against Spanish people, black people. Why we can't have this, you know? Because it's like, why they gotta abuse us?
Crowds of hundreds of demonstrators also rallied in San Francisco and dozens of other cities, including Los Angeles and Chicago. The protests followed the shocking killing of an unarmed black man in South Carolina earlier this month during a routine traffic stop. And finally, the legendary soul singer Percy Sledge has died after a long battle with cancer. He was 74. According to his agent, Sledge passed away at his home in Louisiana on Tuesday, surrounded by family. The prolific singer rose to fame in the 1960s with his first single, When a Man Loves a Woman, which is still widely considered one of the greatest soul songs of all time. Sledge went on to record a string of other classics, including Warm and Tender Love and It Tears Me Up. Among his numerous awards, the man with a golden voice was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2005. And that wraps up our look at international stories for now. I'll see you back here tomorrow night.
Well, it turned out to be a beautiful spring day today, but the rain returns tomorrow. Northern regions will get 5 to 10 millimeters of precipitation, while southern provinces will see less than 5 millimeters. But it could be yellow dust rain. And here in the capital, the rain will start from 9-ish tomorrow morning and last till midday. But again, yellow dust may get mixed in with the showers, so be sure to have an umbrella handy before heading out tomorrow. Now, the temperature will start slightly higher than today, but the top temperatures will be a few notches lower than today due to that rain, so be sure to dress accordingly. And with that in mind, let's take a closer look at the readings for tomorrow. So the high in Seoul will get up to 15, while Daegu and Gwangju rise to 24 and 20, and Busan will top out at 18 tomorrow afternoon. And as for the other regions, it seems like Daejeon and Jeju will see a high of 21 and 22, and Dokdo will top out at 16. Now, Sunday is shaping up to be another rainy day, so keep that in mind if you're planning any outdoor activities this weekend. Well, that's all for Korea, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
And on that mouth-watering note, we've come to the end of our newscast. Thank you for staying with us. This has been Daniel Choy.
And I'm Hwang Ji-hye. Please join us at the same time tomorrow. Goodbye for now.